What if the greatest psychologist of the 20th century had a vision after death? A vision that revealed 6 powerful spiritual secrets that could change how you live right now. This isn't just another historical anecdote. We're talking about Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, standing on the threshold between life and whatever comes next. In that moment, he saw something so profound, it blurred the line between science and spirituality. Was it just a dream, a final flicker of a dying brain, or was it a message from beyond a message? He felt the world wasn't ready to hear. Here's what makes this story even more compelling. These spiritual truths weren't found in public lectures or published books. They were hidden away, buried in Jung's private notes for decades. Only now are we beginning to piece together the meaning and the transformation they offer for anyone willing to look deeper. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just shift the way you think about life, death, and the unseen journey in between. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the human psyche. But in his final vision, what he described as a moment beyond the boundaries of life itself, he saw something that confirmed one of his deepest beliefs, that the self with a capital S is eternal. When Jung talked about the self, he didn't mean the everyday me that worries about bills, jobs, or relationships. He meant something far greater, the center of the entire psyche, the unifying force that holds together both the conscious mind and the vast unconscious beneath it. In Jungian psychology, the self isn't just a part of you, it is you in your truest, most complete form. In his vision, Jung saw this self represented by a mandala, a perfect circle filled with intricate patterns, balanced and symmetrical in every direction. For him, the mandala was more than art. It was a living symbol of wholeness. Every piece of the pattern represented a part of the psyche, your dreams, your fears, your memories, your hidden potential, all connected into a single, harmonious whole. Picture it, Jung, standing before what he called the temple of the self. On the ground before him, a luminous mandala shimmered, not painted, not drawn, but alive, as if woven from light itself. Each shape, each color pulsed with energy. The longer he looked, the more he realized it wasn't just an image. It was a reflection of the totality of his being. This is where it gets fascinating. Jung had seen mandalas before, not just in his own dreams, but in the dreams of his patients, in the art of Tibetan monks, in the sacred geometry of cathedrals, in ancient Native American sand paintings. Across cultures and centuries, the mandala shows up again and again as a symbol of the eternal self. And in his final vision, Jung saw it not as a symbol pointing to reality, but as reality itself. This wasn't metaphor anymore. This was the truth of who we are when everything else falls away. Here's where it gets even more compelling. Many people who have had near-death experiences, NDEs, report something strikingly similar. Entering a space of light, seeing patterns or structures of perfect symmetry, feeling an overwhelming sense of unity and completeness. One NDE survivor described it like this: I stepped into a place where I was everything, and everything was me. There was no time, no fear, no separation, only the sense that I had come home. Sound familiar? That's almost exactly how Jung described his mandala vision. The parallels raise an intriguing question. If people from different cultures, different religions, and different eras all encounter this sense of wholeness at the brink of death, could it be that the self truly is something beyond the physical, something eternal? It's easy to hear this and think, well, that's beautiful, but what does it have to do with me right now? The answer: everything. If the self is eternal, then the work of our lives isn't just about survival, achievement, or comfort. It's about moving toward that wholeness, integrating every part of ourselves, even the ones we'd rather ignore. Jung believed that each choice we make, each moment of self-reflection, each act of facing our fears, is a step toward the center of the mandala. Think of it this way. Life is like walking a spiral path toward the center of yourself. Some paths are smooth, others are rocky. Sometimes you feel like you're moving backward. But every turn of the spiral brings you closer to that eternal self, the one that waits beyond death, but also lives inside you right now. So here's the challenge. Jung's vision leaves us with, are we living in a way that reflects our eternal self? Or are we spending our days scattered, fragmented, avoiding the hard inner work because it's uncomfortable? If the self truly is eternal, then ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It just delays the moment when we fully step into it. And if Jung's vision is right, then death isn't a reset button. It's a mirror showing us exactly who we've become. Jung's mandala isn't just a nice symbol for meditation. It's a reminder that the journey toward wholeness is the real purpose of life. You can't buy it. You can't fake it. And no one else can walk that path for you. But here's the good news. Every moment offers an opportunity to take another step toward that center. When you forgive someone, when you face a fear you've been running from, when you honor a truth about yourself, even if others don't understand. Those moments aren't just self-improvement, they're glimpses of the eternal self breaking through. In his final vision, Jung wasn't given a religious doctrine or a list of commandments. He was shown a truth he had been pointing to his entire career, that beneath the layers of ego, beyond the fears and masks, there is a self that is whole, complete, and untouched by death. And if that's true, then the most important work we can do in this life is to align ourselves with that self, so that when we stand at the threshold Jung described, we'll recognize the mandala before us, not as something foreign, but as home. In Jung's vision beyond death, there was something unexpected, something that challenges the comforting idea that death wipes the slate clean. He realized that the shadow, the hidden side of our personality, doesn't simply vanish when our heart stops beating. It comes with us. Now when Jung talked about the shadow, he wasn't just talking about evil or bad traits. He meant all the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, or refuse to acknowledge: our fears, our insecurities, our unfulfilled desires, even our hidden strengths we're too afraid to use. These are the things we push into the dark corners of our psyche because they don't fit the image we want to present to the world. In his vision, Jung encountered a figure at the gateway, a presence that seemed to guard the entrance to the next realm. It didn't threaten him, but it stood as a test. The unspoken question was clear. Have you faced your shadow? Have you made peace with it? Think about that for a moment. What if the so-called final judgment isn't about some external judge tallying your moral score, but about your own ability to stand fully integrated with nothing left, hidden from yourself? If that's true, then the work of the shadow isn't just a psychological exercise. It's spiritual preparation. In Jungian psychology, shadow work is the process of bringing those hidden parts of yourself into the light, understanding them, and integrating them into your whole being. And here's where Jung's vision gives it new urgency. This isn't just for your mental health here and now. It may also determine how you cross into whatever comes next. We can ignore our shadow in life, but Jung's vision suggests we can't bypass it in death. If we haven't faced it, we may find ourselves stopped at the threshold not by punishment, but by the simple truth that we aren't yet whole. Let me give you an example. I once heard the story of a man who, in a near-death experience, described meeting a presence that forced him to relive moments when he had hurt others, not to shame him, but to make him feel the full weight of those actions. He said it wasn't hell. It wasn't torture. It was the raw truth, and until he accepted it, he couldn't move forward. That's the shadow in action. It's not an enemy, it's a part of us that demands to be acknowledged before we can take the next step. Here's something most people misunderstand. Then the shadow isn't only the negative stuff. It also contains suppressed talents, creativity, and power that we've buried because of fear or conditioning. Maybe you've always wanted to speak your truth, but you were taught to stay quiet. Maybe you have leadership skills you've never used because you're afraid of responsibility. Jung believed that integrating the shadow means reclaiming all of that, not just admitting to your flaws, but also embracing your hidden strengths. And when you think about it, wouldn't you want to cross into the next life, carrying all of yourself, not just the parts you were comfortable showing? You might be wondering, why can't I just deal with this when I get there? Jung's vision suggests that waiting is risky. The shadow grows in the dark. The longer we avoid it, the more power it has over us. And in his view, the moment of death isn't when we suddenly gain wisdom. It's when everything we've avoided comes rushing forward. If you've ever had a difficult conversation you put off for too long, you know how heavy that avoidance can feel. Now imagine that multiplied across your entire life, and meeting it all at once at the doorway to eternity. Shadow work doesn't have to start with something dramatic. It can be as simple as noticing your emotional reactions and asking, what's behind this? If someone irritates you, is it because they're truly wrong? Or because they're reflecting something in yourself you don't want to see? Journaling therapy, meditation. These are all tools Jung encouraged for meeting the shadow. But the key isn't just awareness. It's integration, finding a place for that part of you in the whole picture of who you are. In the end, Jung didn't see the shadow as a curse. He saw it as an essential piece of the puzzle. Without it, the mandala of the self he saw in his vision would be incomplete. And maybe that's the point. The shadow follows us because it is us. The goal isn't to outrun it, but to walk into the next chapter of existence with it at our side, acknowledged, understood, and no longer a source of fear. In Jung's vision beyond death, there was a presence. It didn't look like an angel, a saint, or a loved one he'd lost. Instead, it carried a strange mix of familiarity and mystery. Jung recognized it immediately, not from his earthly life, but from his decades of work in psychology. He called it the archetypal gatekeeper. This figure stood at the threshold, the point between life and whatever lies beyond. It didn't speak in words, but its message was clear. You are about to enter. Are you ready in Jungian? Psychology archetypes are universal symbols and patterns that show up across cultures, religions, and eras. They aren't just ideas, they live in the collective unconscious, shaping our dreams, myths, and even our life decisions. The archetypal gatekeeper is one of these symbols, a guardian figure who stands between worlds, deciding when and how a soul may pass. In his vision, Jung didn't see this as a literal bouncer at the gates of heaven, but as a symbolic guide representing the deep part of ourselves that knows whether we're ready to move forward. This isn't just a Jungian idea. The image of a guide between worlds exists in countless traditions. In Greek mythology, there's Hermes Psychopampos, the guide of souls who leads the dead safely to the underworld. Hermes isn't there to judge. His role is to navigate and protect. In ancient Egypt, the god Anubis served a similar purpose, escorting souls through the dangerous journey of the afterlife and weighing their hearts against the feather of Ma'at. In many Native American traditions, there are spirit guides or animal messengers who help the soul find its way after death, ensuring it doesn't get lost between worlds. What's fascinating is that Jung, a man deeply familiar with these myths, encountered a figure in his vision that fit perfectly into this cross-cultural pattern, proof, perhaps, that these archetypes are more than just stories. They may be part of a shared human experience that transcends time and culture. The gatekeeper doesn't just open or close a door. In Jung's vision, its presence seemed to prompt an unspoken review. Have you done the inner work? Are you complete? It's as if the gatekeeper's role is not to punish, but to ensure that the soul is ready to face the deeper truths of the self without fear or denial. In this way, the archetypal guide is both protector and challenger. It stands as a mirror reflecting your readiness or your unreadiness back to you. Think of it like this in life. We have moments when we're tested before moving to a new chapter, graduating from school, getting married, starting a new career. Each time there's a kind of gate, and often someone, a mentor, a boss, a teacher, acts as the gatekeeper, challenging us to prove we're ready. The archetypal gatekeeper at death is the ultimate version of this. It's not there to keep you out. It's there to make sure that when you enter whole. Many people who've had near-death experiences report meeting a guide sometimes in human form, sometimes as a being of light, sometimes as an animal or even a loved one. One woman described it as the most comforting presence I had ever felt, like every teacher friend and protector I'd ever had all combined into one. These accounts mirror Jung's experience in a striking way, suggesting that the archetypal guide isn't just a personal hallucination. It may be part of the built-in structure of our psyche, or perhaps of reality itself. If Jung's vision is true, then we all have an appointment with our own gatekeeper. The question isn't whether we'll meet it, it's what state we'll be in when we do. Are we doing the inner work to be ready? Are we living in alignment with our deeper self? Are we carrying unresolved fears, regrets, or shadows that could hold us back? Because here's the thing, the gatekeeper is not fooled by appearances. It doesn't care about titles, possessions, or social status. It responds to authenticity and wholeness. For Jung, meeting the archetypal gatekeeper wasn't frightening, it was profound. It confirmed what he had long suspected, that our journey doesn't end at death and that we are guided even in the most mysterious transitions. And maybe that's the real takeaway for us. We are not alone in this journey. Somewhere deep in the architecture of existence, there is a guide waiting not to judge us, but to walk with us as we cross the most important threshold of all. In Jung's vision beyond death, there was one element that overpowered everything else. Not fear, not darkness, but light. And this wasn't just any light. It wasn't the warm glow of a sunset or the blinding beam of the midday sun. This was something entirely different, something he later understood as primordial light, the pure essence of consciousness itself. Jung described it as a light that seemed alive, aware, and intelligent. It didn't shine on things, it seemed to shine through them, as if every particle of existence was made from it. Standing in its presence, there was no sense of time, no sense of distance. Just an overwhelming feeling of connection to everything. He realized immediately that this wasn't physical light. It wasn't bouncing off surfaces or casting shadows. It was more like the source from which all reality flows. In his words, it was the first reality, the foundation upon which all other experiences, both in life and beyond, are built. Now, if you've read about near-death experiences, NDEs, you'll notice something interesting. Reports of an intense, loving light are incredibly common. People from all over the world, across different religions and backgrounds, describe being enveloped by a brilliance that feels more real than anything they've ever known. Modern researchers have studied thousands of these cases. In one well-known study by Dr. Raymond Moody, over 60% of NDE survivors reported encountering a light of profound love and understanding. Many described it as conscious a presence rather than an object. Some neuroscientists speculate that this could be the brain's response to extreme stress or lack of oxygen. But that explanation doesn't account for the consistency of the reports or the deep, lasting changes people experience afterward, changes in personality values and even physical health. Jung's vision lines up perfectly with these modern accounts, except for one difference: he had the language of psychology and symbolism to frame it. For him, this wasn't just a biological glitch, it was the unveiling of a deeper dimension of reality. Jung connected this primordial light to the archetype of the self for the unifying principle of the psyche. If the self is the center and totality of who we are, then this light could be seen as its ultimate expression and the pure, undivided awareness from which all our experiences arise. This idea has fascinating parallels in spiritual traditions around the world. In Buddhism, there's the concept of the clear light encountered at the moment of death. In Christian mysticism, there's the uncreated light of God's presence. In Hinduism, the Upanishads speak of the light of the self that illuminates all things. Different cultures, different languages, but the same experience described again and again. You might be asking, okay, that's beautiful, but what does it mean for me now? Here's the thing: Jung believed that this light isn't only something we meet after death. It's here now, at the very core of our being. We just don't notice it because we're so wrapped up in the noise of daily life, our worries, our plans, our endless scrolling. Moments of deep meditation, awe in nature, or profound love can give us fleeting glimpses of it. Those are the moments when we feel completely present, when the chatter of the mind goes quiet, and we sense something bigger moving through us. If the light is the first reality, then maybe our job in life isn't just to prepare for it after death, but to align with it while we're still here. That could mean living more truthfully, staying connected to what's real, instead of chasing illusions and letting go of the parts of ourselves that keep us small. Jung saw the light as both the beginning and the destination. We come from it, we live within it, whether we realize it or not, and we return to it. And perhaps the more we align ourselves with it now, the smoother that return will be when our time comes. So here's the question Jung's vision leaves us with: if this light is who we truly are, why do we spend so much of our lives in the shadows? And more importantly, what would change if we made the light our guide, not just at the moment of death, but in every decision, every relationship, every dream we pursue? Because if Jung was right, the light isn't something we need to find. It's something we need to remember. When Jung's vision carried him to the temple of the self, he expected, like most of us might, that this was the grand finale, the end of the story. But instead, what he felt was something very different. It wasn't finality, it was homecoming. He described it as the unmistakable sense of returning to where he had always belonged, as though every step in his life, every success, failure, joy, and heartbreak had been leading him to this very place. And standing there, he realized something profound. Death is not the end. It's the continuation of the journey we've been on all along. In Jungian psychology, the temple is one of the most powerful symbols of the self, the totality of our being, both conscious and unconscious. To arrive there is not to stop existing, but to reach a deeper state of integration. The temple of the self in Jung's vision was radiant, alive with meaning. Its structure wasn't made of stone, wood, or any earthly material. It was formed from a kind of living order, as if every pattern, every proportion was perfectly aligned with the truth of his own soul. The moment he stepped toward it, he didn't feel like he was moving into something new, but into something eternal. It was the ultimate confirmation of what he had always suspected, that life and death are not opposites. They're chapters in the same book. This idea that death is a continuation isn't unique to Jung. It's echoed across many of the world's great wisdom traditions. In Buddhism, there's the concept of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Life is seen as a continuous flow with death as a transition from one state of consciousness to another. The ultimate goal is enlightenment, breaking free from the cycle not by escaping life, but by fully awakening within it. In Taoist philosophy, death is described as a return to the Tao, the original source from which all things arise. Life is a temporary expression of that source, and death is simply the release of form back into the infinite flow. Both traditions speak of death not as an interruption, but as a return, a homecoming. And when you compare them to Jung's vision, the parallels are striking. In the West, we often think of life as a straight line birth, at one end, death at the other, with a short stretch in between to make it count. But Jung's experience invites us to think differently, to see life as part of a cycle where death is simply the turning of a page, not the closing of the book. Imagine if we truly believed that. How would it change the way we live? Would we still be so obsessed with racing against the clock, with clinging to every moment as if it's slipping away forever? Or would we relax into the flow, knowing that every ending is also a beginning? The feeling of homecoming in Jung's vision wasn't about returning to a specific place. It was about returning to a state of being. It was the deep, peaceful recognition that he was where he was meant to be and had always been. Think of the last time you came home after a long, exhausting journey. The relief, the comfort, the familiarity. Now multiply that feeling by infinity. That's what Jung was describing. And here's the part that makes it truly transformative. If death is a homecoming, then life isn't about escaping our flaws or our challenges. It's about learning from them, integrating them, and carrying that wisdom forward. If we accept the idea that death is a continuation, it changes how we approach the present. We start to see our struggles not as random suffering, but as training for what comes next. We become less afraid of endings because we understand they're woven into a larger pattern. Jung believed that our work in life individuation, the process of becoming whole, is the preparation for that return. The more fully we live, the more completely we'll arrive at the temple when our time comes. So here's the question. If you knew that death was not an end, but a continuation, how would you live differently today? Would you spend less time fearing what's ahead and more time cultivating the kind of self you'd want to carry forward into the next chapter? Jung's vision challenges us to stop seeing death as a wall and to start seeing it as a doorway that leads us deeper into the truth of who we are. In the final moments of his vision, Jung understood something crystal clear: the way we live now shapes the way we will step through the final threshold. Death in his eyes wasn't a cosmic lottery or a random assignment. It was the mirror of the life we've been living all along. This is both empowering and confronting. Empowering because it means we have influence over our spiritual journey beyond death. Confronting because it means there's no skipping the work. We can't just hope to figure it out at the end. Imagine arriving at that final doorway, the one Jung called the threshold, and finding that everything you've carried inside yourself is suddenly laid bare. The gatekeeper from his vision isn't interested in your achievements, your titles, or the size of your bank account. What it sees is your inner state. If your life has been spent running from your truth, burying your wounds, or ignoring your inner balance, that's what you'll bring with you. But if you've lived authentically healed what needed healing, and embraced all parts of yourself, even the uncomfortable ones, then you'll step forward with a lightness that no fear can weigh down. For Jung, living authentically meant aligning your actions with your deepest values, not just with what's expected of you. It's about dropping the masks, the pretenses, and the need to perform for the approval of others. Ask yourself, how much of your life is truly yours? How many choices do you make because they're genuine expressions of who you are, and how many because they keep you safe in someone else's approval? In Jung's vision, authenticity wasn't optional. It was the passport through the threshold. But authenticity alone isn't enough if you're still carrying wounds that bleed into every part of your life. That's where healing comes in, what Jung saw as integrating the fractured parts of the psyche. This means turning toward your pain instead of avoiding it. It means forgiving not because someone deserves it, but because you deserve the freedom that comes with releasing it. Healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you lost along the way. One of Jung's more nuanced teachings is the anima and animus, the feminine aspect within a man, and the masculine aspect within a woman. True wholeness, he believed, comes from balancing these energies regardless of gender. When these aspects are in harmony, you live with both strength and compassion, reason and intuition, assertiveness and receptivity. But when they're out of balance, life can feel like a constant inner conflict. In Jung's afterlife vision, stepping through the threshold wasn't just about moral purity, it was about wholeness. And balancing anima and animus is part of that wholeness. The most striking part of Jung's insight is how practical it is. Every single day is a chance to prepare for the afterlife, not in a fearful, obsessive way, but in a way that makes your life richer here and now. Each time you choose honesty over convenience, you're preparing. Each time you face a fear, instead of avoiding it, you're preparing. Each time you bring compassion to a part of yourself or someone else, you're preparing. This is why Jung's final secret feels less like a mystical revelation and more like a personal challenge. Don't wait for the threshold to live in alignment with yourself. Start now. So here's the question. If you stood before that threshold tonight, how would you feel? Ready, hesitant, afraid? Whatever your answer is, that's your starting point. And the beauty of Jung's vision is that it's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to keep moving toward wholeness step by step, so that when your moment comes, you'll cross that threshold with open eyes and an open heart. Carl Jung's vision beyond death isn't just an intriguing footnote in the life of a great psychologist. It's a mirror. A mirror that reflects something deeply personal back to each of us, the truth that our journey doesn't end when our heart stops beating. Every choice we make, every fear we face, every truth we embrace is part of preparing for that final threshold. This isn't just Jung's story. It's a reminder for your own. His vision challenges us to stop drifting through life and start living with intention, with authenticity, and with an awareness that what we carry inside will follow us beyond this world. So let me ask you, if you saw what Jung saw, would you be ready? Would you step through the gate with nothing to hide, or would you feel the weight of what's been left undone? The beautiful thing is you still have time. Time to align with your deeper self, to heal what's fractured, and to live in a way that brings light to the journey ahead. And if this exploration stirred something in you, stay with me. In our next video, we'll decode the 7 archetypes Jung believed could guide the soul after death, symbols that might already be appearing in your dreams, relationships, and turning points in life. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the hidden truths that connect psychology, spirituality, and the eternal journey of the soul. Because the journey isn't over, and maybe it's only just begun.